Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Friday, November 7, 2025. It's day 38 of the longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. The U.S. military announcing plans to buy at least 1 million new drones as they drastically revamp their arsenal to meet the intensifying demands of modern warfare. China launching their most advanced aircraft carrier to date as the communist regime takes a monumental step forward in their effort to pressure the West. And a number of privacy watchdogs sounding the alarm over the enormous amount of personal data which modern cars are collecting on the drivers of those fine new rides. Also, Iran's capital city now preparing to evacuate their entire population due to a pending water crisis, and that deadline only days away. And a whole bunch of phony greenbacks are making the rounds in Florida, and we'll tell you why officials say this funny money is like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. All this and a bunch more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin here. The U.S. Army is aiming to modernize their forces and dramatically update the tools at their disposal by buying millions of state-of-the-art drones over the next several years. The Secretary of the Army says that right now, his branch of the military is only purchasing 50,000 drones annually. However, he says that moving forward, they plan on buying up to 1 million new drones over the next couple of years alone, and then continue stockpiling another 1 million drones each year thereafter in order to build up our resources. Can't have too many of them drones. The Army Secretary says they're making the drastic move because drones are the future of warfare. Says as a result, his immediate priority is to help our country rapidly update our supply chain, ramp up domestic production, and start cranking out enough drones so that we can defend ourselves in any future confrontation with our enemies. I didn't know we had enemies. I thought everybody kind of loved the good old USA. Now, the Army chief says the U.S. military is making the move because we're learning a whole bunch of important lessons from Russia's brutal war against Ukraine. In case you're not aware, throughout that entire campaign, both sides have effectively been relying on small and cheap drones in order to crack through the numerous anti-aircraft systems which dot the front lines. He also points out that right now, our military definitely facing an enormous challenge if we hope to keep up with the drone production of our foreign adversaries. Also says right now, Russia can churn out about 4 million drones a year, and that China likely has the ability to produce twice that number. Sounds like we're a little late to the party. Now, the Army chief says his goal is to fundamentally change the way our military looks at drones, and that he considers them to be more like expendable ammunition rather than elaborate chunks of equipment. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Now, the manner in which wars are fought, it's always shifting and changing. The battlefield looks substantially different today than it did in previous generations. And take a look at how things are unfolding in Russia's war with Ukraine. In case you missed it, drones, they're being used extensively, as we just mentioned, by both countries. They're extremely effective, and in the overall scheme of things, they're relatively affordable. Now, after a close examination regarding how those machines are being used and the variety of ways which they can benefit our military, we're joining the fray, thinking ahead. We're planning for the future and digging deep into the drone game ourselves. Naturally, it's going to cost a good chunk of change for the U.S. Army to purchase those drones and in huge numbers. But as with all branches of our military, the Army is well funded, and every dollar allocated to these purchases, that'll be money well spent. And we can spare no expense when it comes to national security. Think this through. In the past, we were always ahead of the game militarily, but right now it feels like we're playing catch up. And no country on the planet should ever have more or superior assets than the U.S. Now tell us what you're thinking about the big purchases, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. With that, producer Davey, welcome aboard, and who's up first?
Okay, Bill, we've got Amelia checking in with us from Clovis, New Mexico.
Hello, Amelia. I'm very familiar with Clovis. Beautiful part of the state.
She says, adding millions of drones to our military's arsenal is a good start, but we shouldn't be playing catch-up with our foes. We should be leading the way.
Yeah, I think in the past, in previous generations, we always led the way. So it feels like I said just a moment ago, we're kind of late to the party. I don't like it. By the way, I'm a fan of drones. I've been following that industry for decades now. It's always going to be to our advantage to use drones in place of boots on the ground in any potential conflict. Appreciate you very much checking in, Amelia. And we'll stick with a kind of a related topic now. Turn our attention attention to an alarming development concerning the rapidly expanding military of the CCP, the Chinese Communist regime. China commissioning its most advanced aircraft carrier ever and launching it into the Pacific, the good old ocean blue, and all in a provocative move, which experts say is designed to send a loud message to the U.S. and the allies, our allies. Relax, China. We hear you already. Now, the modern ship becomes China's third aircraft carrier, as well as the first one that the communist regime both designed and built by itself. Well, they're almost like grown-ups now. According to state media, the vessel is equipped with what they call electromagnetic catapults, which allow it to launch planes at much higher speeds. Also has the capability to carry jets with heavier weapons and fuel loads, allowing them to strike enemy targets from much further away. Experts say the ship amounts to another powerful arrow in the quiver of what's already the world's largest navy. And they claim it allows China to greatly extend their power beyond their own waters, that it marks a significant step forward in the communist regime's desire to challenge U.S. naval supremacy, and that perhaps most disturbingly, it's a visible example of China's mission to go toe-to-toe with the U.S. by the middle of the century. Oh yeah, we'll see you in 25 years. In a recent report to Congress, the Pentagon called China the only competitor with the U.S. that has both the goal and the capacity to reshape the current world order. I've been saying this for months, and apparently the Pentagon has been listening. Hey, Producer Davey, there are apparently news rounduppers at the Pentagon. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bill, you're absolutely right. There are news rounduppers at the Pentagon listening to what you have to say.
Send them some free news roundup hats. However, right now, the communist regime still lags far behind our nation when it comes to both the number of aircraft carriers. We have 11, they've got about 3, and the fuels they rely on. Unlike China's, all of ours, they are nuclear powered. And their ships, as far as I know, they run on the cheap stuff, the 87 octane. Additionally, most of the rest of our naval fleet far more advanced as well. A final thought in this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, in the old days, Detroit, they kind of dominated the automotive industry, and that town was pretty much unbeatable. Now, it took some time, but it almost seems like perhaps Detroit was resting on their laurels, or maybe even asleep at the wheel, asleep at the steering wheel. They seemed too big to fail, and success came kind of easy to what they used to call the Detroit Three, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. But then something real sinister happened. Check it out. Japan began to chip away at the market with their little-known Datsuns and Toyotas and more, and in time they ended up making competitive vehicles. Gas savers, too. They innovated, and they kind of beat us at our own game, and for more than 6,000 miles across the sea. You know, it stings more than just a little bit when your top-of-the-heap status is challenged by a competitor, and it's happening again, only now on a more critical level. Now, everybody is saying that China has a superior navy, but then again, nobody is saying they don't have. They do or they don't, we don't really know. But here's what everybody can absolutely agree on. China certainly has the largest navy. It's bigger than ours, and I want to know who was sleeping on the job while that country ended up with more oversized military catamarans than we have. Producer Davey, are you there?
I'm standing by, Bill. What do you
I
need?
want answers. How did they get bigger than we got? I want answers.
Okay, Bill, I'm on it.
Under the direction of China's Xi Jinping, that country has ill intentions. They've made it abundantly clear that at one point they will make a move on Taiwan, and it's worth mentioning again that in a number of ways they continue to support Russia in that country's war against Ukraine. Bottom line, China is rapidly becoming enemy number one. Now, this doesn't pass a smell test, and we cannot sit idly by and watch China outperform us in the lab, in the skies above, or on the water. And tell us your thoughts. You'll catch us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And Davey, what are folks saying?
Okay, Bill, we have Cyrus checking in with us from Buffalo, New York.
Cyrus, great to have you with us. What are you thinking, sir?
He says the Chinese Communist Party is using every resource at their disposal to threaten the free world.
Yeah.
Every cent we give them goes to support their military, and as long as we do business with them, we are digging our own grave.
Cyrus, a couple things. We haven't given them 1 cent, not 1 red cent, if you know what I mean. We have trade agreements, so we're not digging our own grave. We need China. China needs us. We have to buy things from one another. We're not going to get by without those goods, all those products that we're buying from China, so they're supporting our economy. We're supporting their economy. And to suggest suggest that when we buy things, the money they're making from us goes directly and only to their military. That's kind of short-sighted. So rethink that. And remember, we do have to be on friendly terms with China, at least for the time being. It's very convenient. There's nothing new, by the way. It's happened a number of times in the past. And if we allow any communist nation, China or any communist nation, to have any advantage over the U.S. on any level at any time, in my estimation, I say the whole world will be in jeopardy. All right, change things up just a bit now. Shift our focus to growing concerns over the massive amount of personal data that's being collected every time a person steps behind the wheel of a modern automobile. And what do we always try to do on the program? We try to keep you out of trouble in your brand new, shiny automobile. According to a number of privacy watchdog groups, modern cars are basically advanced computers on wheels that use sensors and cameras and guidance systems and more to track everything you do when you drive them. They warn that while the latest advertised features might make driving safer, maybe more convenient, they're actually becoming increasingly interconnected, collecting massive amounts of data. And they're actually spying on every move you make, like that Paul McCartney song from 1986, Spies Like Us. Pretty good song. It wasn't Yesterday or Let It Be, but it was a respectable hit. One watchdog group says that when it comes to protecting your privacy, cars are the worst product category they've ever encountered. They point out that the personal information which nearly every modern vehicle is gathering comes from GPS navigation, camera systems, connected devices, and all the rest. Making matters worse, they claim that all your precious data then being passed along to insurance companies, advertisers, and other less reputable agencies. They're all looking to mine that information for their very own benefits. In other words, their profit. Experts say all this data collection begins the moment you drive that car off the lot. But fortunately, you have options. They say you can potentially manipulate the menu systems on the screen and actually stop that information from being used. Of course, to do that, you're going to need a PhD in biology to figure it out, but give it a shot. Additionally, here in the U.S., drivers can ask car makers to restrict what they do with all that personal information they're collecting, including by asking them to delete it completely. Well, you can ask, but you can't force them. Maybe you can ask the dealership to help out when you buy that brand new ride. And a reminder, Davey, if there's anyone in the world you can put your complete faith and trust in, it's the local car dealer. Producer Davey, am I right?
Oh, Bill, you're right again.
The Wagon Queen family truckster. You think you hate it now, but wait till you drive it.
Especially those used car lots. Trust those guys. A final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Cars and trucks from yestertime, they have a lot in common with today's new and newer cars. Well, the old ones, just like the new ones, they have four wheels, blinkers, gas and brake pedals, and speedometers. You got your front seats, your back seats, floor mats, glove compartments, and the repurposed cigarette lighters. I think they're called phone chargers now. The big difference is that the vehicles from yestertime, they weren't spying on you. You bought a new rig with something down and something per month for 3 years, and what you did and what you said and where you went and how you got there, well, that was all between two consenting adults, you and your ride. Well, the current crop of motor cars, they know more about you than your spouse knows, more about you than your mom, dad, aunts, uncles, doctor, and employer know. And you never really know to what extent all that private info is being used for. I don't like it. Whatever happened to our right to privacy? The deal is they spy on you in other countries. In China, they have cameras everywhere. They're watching everything you do, and most likely, a lot of what you say. They've got more cameras over there than we've got grains of sand on the beach in Malibu. Spying should be left to China. They're good at it. They got it down to a science, maybe even an art. But we're Americans, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to be spied on. All right, tell us what you're thinking, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. I don't want to be spied on, Davey. I hope other folks don't want to be spied on as well.
I don't think anybody wants to be spied on, Bill, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we have Ed from Rochester, Minnesota checking in with us, and here's what he has to say.
Brother Ed, lay it on us.
He says, thanks for sharing. I'm trading in my Lexus for a horse and buggy.
Or a 78 Dodge. They'll both get you about the same distance. But yeah, that new stuff, it bothers me. And there's no way I'll ever plunk down even a nickel for any ride that comes direct from the factory with spying technology. Also, Davey, as you know, I'm required to say this, the legalese. So, this for you as well, Ed. All emails are being recorded or monitored for quality assurance and training purposes. Davey, did I get the legal stuff right?
Bill, you hit the nail on the head and got it correctamundo.
Fabulous. Now some additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on right here in the News Roundup newsroom. First up, October layoffs in the U.S. hitting their highest monthly total in 22 years. As a growing number of companies, they look to trim their overhead by cutting costs and stepping up their use of artificial intelligence. Good old AI. A break in development right out of Europe, and right now, the government of Denmark announcing an agreement to ban the use of social media by anyone under the age of 15. And that groundbreaking move coming amid concerns that widespread access to harmful online content is damaging a growing number of children worldwide. A ban on social media in Denmark. This kind of sounds like kiddos will actually have to go outside and play. I don't know about that. And moving along to a troubling item from the Middle East. Iran's president warning that the residents of Tehran, that the Islamic Republic's capital city, now facing an unprecedented water and energy crisis. Says if it doesn't rain by the end of this month, I don't think it will, the water rationing will begin. And if it doesn't get better after that, they'll be forced to evacuate the entire area. And while they're evacuating, I hope they don't threaten us some more like they're always doing. Iran, we're watching you. All right, glide on over now to the world of business and a quick peek at a couple of stories shaking the tree in finance and industry and more. Kicking things off, a bit of encouraging news for our nation's retailers and experts predicting that this year's holiday shoppers here in the U.S. are going to spend more than $1 trillion combined for the first time ever, beginning on Black Friday and continuing all the way through Christmas. Now, producer Davey, make sure we talk very soon. I got to share my Christmas list with you, and you better get me some good stuff. Better be a good haul this year on account of I ain't been naughty. Davey, I've been nice. What do I got to get?
Well, Bill, you can count on a gift from me, and it's probably going to be a lump of coal.
I would have preferred an Etch-a-Sketch, but a lump of coal, that's not half bad. And flying right along, the Aussie airline called Qantas, I've heard of those guys, releasing the first photos of their revolutionary new Airbus A350 passenger aircraft. They say the jumbo jet airline is going to allow them to fly nonstop from Sydney, as in Australia, to either London or New York, and that if all goes according to plan, set to take off on its maiden voyage in less than a year. And some health stuff now, in case you have high cholesterol. You might want to listen up. 140,000 bottles of a popular cholesterol drug. It's called atorvastatin. They've just been recalled here in the States because the meds might not work properly. Now, that medicine is the generic version of the brand name Lipitor, and it's the single most prescribed drug here in the U.S. And a quick look now at the lighter side of news. A pizza maker in Long Island, New York just sold his 1 millionth pie, and he's rewarding the lucky customer who bought it by giving her a free pizza every week for an entire year. Yeah, I'll tell you, some people go on a goofy game show and they win brand new Cadillac cars. Other people, they buy lotto tickets and they score that $2 billion Powerball jackpot. But the only prize truly worth winning in life is free pizza. 1 pie per week for a whole year. The winner's name is Keisha Bailey. And Keisha, you are a rock star. Now, producer Davey, I want you to send her a free subscription to the News Roundup right away.
Bill?
Yes?
Subscriptions to the News Roundup, they're already free.
Oh, well, then send her one of those rare lifetime subscriptions. A private tropical island as we scoot along in Belize. That's been the longtime vacation spot for legendary filmmaker FFC Francis Ford Coppola. Has just been sold for 1.8 million clams. Included in the deal, Coppola's pet dog Rosie, who spends most of her time hanging out on the beach. Yeah, so do I. You know, all I ever wanted out of life was my very own private island. It's all I ever wanted. Maui, it's already taken. Fiji is too far, and this one would have been perfect. But that one right there, Engineer Jamie, she didn't tell me it was for sale. Thanks, Engineer Jamie. Scooting along, luxury car maker Rolls-Royce generously offering a $5,000 discount to anyone who plunks down the cash to lease one of their high-end electric cars before adding any options. Those cars, by the way, they sell for about $400,000 a piece. Well, sure, the car is going to set you back $400 large, but with that generous $5,000 lease credit, I think it's a steal. And on a 3-year lease, Davey, I did the math, comes out to a very workable $11,000 per month for your car payments. And honestly, I'm just thinking out loud, I think I would look very good in a double R. Producer Davey, would I look good in a brand new Rolls Royce, or would I look good?
Bill, you would look great in a brand new Rolls Royce, especially if you were wearing a chauffeur's cap.
I don't need a chauffeur's cap except for the guy who's going to be driving me around in that brand new Rolls Royce. Davey, if you're free on weekends, I got a side hustle for you. Also, speaking of big bucks, a bunch of fake 20s and $100 bills have been showing up all over the Florida Keys, and authorities say the funny money comes straight out of Hollywood, used as props in a number of blockbuster movies. And at a first glance, the bogus bills actually look kind of authentic. You know, life is kind of basic. If somebody hands you a 20 or a hundy and Chuck Schumer's face is on the bill, then just like the esteemed gentleman from New York, yeah, it's probably a phony. Never accept cash, and always tell those in your debt that you only accept checks. Hey, Producer Davey, do people still write checks?
No, Bill. People haven't used checks for years. They went out around the time that dinosaurs left the planet. Now people use stuff like PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, all kinds of other things. Come on, man.
All right, new technology right over my head. And now time for us to call it a wrap on the Friday edition of the Big News Roundup. But before we go, as we do each and every day right here on the big program, we like to share with you a very notable quote. And these inspiring words come to us today from the great Mel Brooks, who said, "Humor is just another defense against the universe." You know, Brooks is a legendary American filmmaker, actor, and comedian who is one of only a few guys to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. I think they call that EGOT. Is that right, Davey? EGOT?
That's right, Bill, the EGOT.
Among his best-known works, The Producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, I remember that, and a bunch more. Also, Davey, don't forget, he was also a great cartoon voiceover guy. He did the voices of Bugs Bunny, also Daffy Duck, Yosemite Sam, and a bunch of...
Wait a second, Bill, what are you talking about? That's not Mel Brooks. That's Mel Blanc.
Oh.
This is Mel Brooks we're talking about.
Who knew there were two Mels in show business? And now it is time for us to bust on out for the weekend. But before we go, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. For example, simply hit that subscribe button right over there. And that way you never miss a single episode. And now it looks like our time, it's officially up. So have an awesome day today. Enjoy your weekend. Please stay safe. It's not too much to ask that we all continue to watch out for one another. And with that, we'll ask Jamie to dim the lights. We're going to gently fade to black, ease into the weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday afternoon.